What's up, guys? This is your boy Trey from the Stone Disclosure Podcast. I'm here right now where we're gonna get a little bit of a topic here. I've been having this discussion actually with a lot of people over the last, I'd say, like couple months when we sit down and talk about like relationship stuff. This is like my boys, my female friends, guys that I was talking to in the sauna. Like this has come up a lot. And it's one of those things that I think we've always known kind of was a problem, and we never really kind of understood how it worked. Now, what I'm going to talk about today is the difference between baggage and luggage in relationships. Now, I'm just going to start it off with a very, very basic definition sense, and you guys can Google this if you would like. The definition of baggage is all of your contents that you put into your suitcases. That's what they consider the baggage. Once you add weight to it, it's considered baggage. The definition of luggage is that suitcase when it's empty. So take that concept in for a second. One is full and one is empty. Now, when do you normally have baggage? Normally you have the baggage when you're coming back. Not to say that you're not loading up your stuff when you're going on the trip, but there is definitely a huge difference between the two. Now, if you're looking at luggage, you're bringing it to a luggage carriage. Your luggage is really just the stuff you're going to need for whatever journey you're going on. So that trip that you're going on, whatever you put in that suitcase is catered just to the things that you're going to need when you're there. Now, some people overpack a little bit, but outside of that, it's essentially stuff you need for that journey. You're not going to bring stuff on your vacation that you don't really need there. You're not going to bring a big screen TV. You're not going to bring like a garbage can. You're not going to bring any of that stuff. Like, you're just bringing the things that you actually need for the trip. When you're coming back, everything in that suitcase now becomes baggage because the trip is done. The excursion is finished. The journey is over. And now you're bringing all this stuff back. And what's the first thing that you should be doing when you come back from a trip is taking all of that out of the suitcase, figuring out where it goes, and putting it where it's got to be. Now, some of the stuff is stuff you're going to keep. Some of this stuff is things that you may have impulse buy. You know, like I've done it, so I can't even hold anybody accountable. Some of the stuff is stuff you're going to throw out, and some stuff you're going to give away. But you're not going to know what's useful in that baggage until you go through that process. So just in the contrast of this, if we're going to say luggage is what you bring before the journey, then baggage is definitely what you bring after the journey. And if luggage is going to be things that you mostly need, not to say that the stuff in baggage is not stuff you're going to need, but it's not stuff you need for that journey because that journey is now over. Can you use it for another journey? Absolutely. But the only way you're going to determine that is by actually going through it. Now, if we're going to take this now and we're going to put this into an emotional sense, which is exactly what I want to do with this. And I'm not just talking about romantic relationships. I'm talking about friendships, family dynamics, jobs, whatever it is. This all coincides with the exact same thing. We need to understand that, and we really need to put a lot of stock into that idea because it's not just relationships. It's anything in general. One beautiful thing about this is that you're not alone. We all have baggage. I have baggage. You have baggage. Your mom has baggage. Your brother has baggage. Your partner has baggage. Everybody's got it. We've all got baggage. Some of our baggage is actually similar. Some of us have more than others. Some of us have ones that we've never experienced before. And I really started to learn that when I started talking to people and having communications with people. Really trying to figure out what makes people tick. Like having those uncomfortable conversations is where you start to realize like how much you actually have and how much you don't have. Now, if we're going to talk about baggage really quick, really all it is, it's residual emotional effects from past situations and experiences. And it usually is caused because that situation and the emotional effects behind it have not been processed. It hasn't been dealt with. It's just been sitting there. And because we don't have an answer to it, it sits in our mind and it causes us emotional stress and it causes us emotional turmoil. At the end of the day, Some of these things don't have a home right now. There's no place to put it. So it just sits there. It lingers in your mind. And it lingers in every part of your life. And sometimes we become so accustomed to that we just think it's normal. We just think, oh, well, that's just the way my life is. That's the way my life works. And you become comfortable in that space. Now let's take it one league a little bit deeper. A lot of the emotional damage that we go through and a lot of the baggage that we collect, we've had since we were kids. A lot of that is unresolved childhood trauma and unresolved childhood issues that we ourselves just have not touched. Now, as a child, I understand, like, your experience is different. You don't know enough about the world yet. You're not at a place where you can truly understand the things that are going on, what's happening to you, what's happening in your family. You don't understand these things as a child. So what do? Because you can't figure it out, you put it in a closet. And the goal is eventually I will understand this enough that when I go to deal with it, I'll be able to figure it out. But we have that general idea as human beings, out of sight, out of mind. If it's in that closet, for you to go deal with it, you got to go into the closet. And if you've put it away and now you don't have to deal with it, how willing are you to go in there and do that? Now, the only way we do that as people is if we're ready to take that on. That's a conscious decision that we're going to make for ourselves to handle it. Now, don't get me wrong. Does it pop up later on in our lives? Absolutely. But we'll do the exact same thing. Shove it in the closet because it's easier. The human brain, the human mind, the human body, everything, it's designed for ease. Human beings by nature, we are lazy. And not because we choose to be. It's just we're always going to try to find a way to make the process easier for ourselves. If you look at like lifting, you're lifting something heavy. When you're lifting whatever it is, your body's going to feel that it's heavy, and then all the muscles that can help lift it will all just automatically come into play. When you haven't had enough water in your body, you get that feeling of being thirsty. When you're extremely tired, your body will shut itself down. It's all for ease and all for comfort. And we can go with that dynamic all we want. That's great. But that's just going to leave you in a place where, like, you're not going to be really fulfilled as a person. Because you're going to be taking the easy way out all the time. You're just following the natural flow of the body, because then that's all self-preservation. I've actually seen a study that says that your brain kicks in when your body is about 60% stress. So if you put this in the context of lifting something heavy, let's say as a person, and this is just for numbers' sake, you can lift 100 pounds. The second you're using 60% of your output, your brain's going to kick in and say you can't do this. Because it's trying to preserve itself from harm. It's trying to preserve itself from being uncomfortable. Comfort is huge. Comfort is massive for any human being. Now, what I look at is we've all heard the stories. We've all seen them all the time. Like, I remember the first time I heard there was a story of a woman and a car had like driven on top of her child. And this woman was 120, maybe 130 pounds max. And she lifted this car enough so that she could reach down and grab her kid and put this car back down. That part of her brain that like kicks in and says, no, you can't do anymore, like that got shut off in that moment. And as people, we got to understand that, like, when we come across something difficult, it's because it's meant to actually make us stronger. But we don't do that because for us, it's like, oh, well, this is hard. I don't want to deal with it. Now think about as a kid trying to process this stuff, you know you can't, so you put it away. So your responsibility really as you get older and become more experienced in life is going back to tackle some of these issues, but we don't. A lot of us just leave it there. So we now take all this baggage and shove it into a closet. Now you don't have any closet space. Now, to pull this back into perspective here, I'm just going to give like just a quick little rundown of like what some of this stuff can actually look like. Again, baggage is normal and everybody has it. And what we have to figure out is like ways that we're going to work with it to eventually overcome it. If possible. Usually it is, but it's going to take work and you have to want to do it. Now, some examples of baggage that you'll see like people bringing in are like people who are like serial cheaters or like serial daters, trust issues, fear, unrequited like relationships where like you're constantly just like giving to a person and you're not really like, they're letting you know like I ain't giving you anything. You're not getting anything back from me. But you continue to do it. And this is not just relationship, this is friendships as well. Think about friendships where you're constantly the person giving to that friendship, but when you need help, ain't nobody there to help you. Or they got an excuse as to why they can't. Or they have to wait until you like beg them. Till they're like, okay, I can help you with this. I don't know about you guys. I know with myself, if one of my friends comes to me and says, hey man, like, I don't know, like this happened today. Like I'm immediately like, all right, well, what happened? Let's try to figure it out. Let's see what we can do. If I can help you, I'll help you. If I can't, I'll try to give you advice or point you in a direction where you can receive the help that you need. But how many of those relationships are we in? And how many of those relationships are we actually getting help when we need it ourselves? Other examples of this are like people who avoid conflicts. This was a person that I was, and I will truly say that. Like a lot of the things on this list was me. And I will attest to this. Like a year and a half ago, this was me. Some of them are still me. And some of it will relate to you. And it's okay. Because that's, again, it's normal. It's just part of our baggage system. So people who are big with conflict avoidance. Anyone who's had like intense relationship history. Like they've been with numerous partners who have cheated on them. They've been in relationships that were abusive. They've been in relationships that were one-sided, like mutual, over and over and over. It's like you're dating the same individual over and over and over. People who have heavy insecurities and like a very low sense of actual self-love and value. Those are a lot of the people who like will look at themselves and just hate themselves for no reason. They're very hard on themselves. They don't take compliments very well. They don't, I don't know, they're just in that place. They're in a place where just their value system for themselves is lower. And, you know, as much as you may tell them that they're amazing and as much as you may tell them that they're great, they don't see it in themselves. People who have a fear of commitment, right? Relationships where like your well-being is tied to that relationship. So I'm unhappy because my relationship is unhealthy. Or I'm happy because my relationship is good. So as soon as the relationship takes a turn, your whole mental well-being and your love for self is gone. So you don't really have love for self. You're just in a relationship and that relationship determines your happiness. Those are actually like very dangerous places to be in. Family dysfunction is huge. Like if you are dysfunctional with all members of family, like you get along with like one person in your family, that might not be a family thing, that might be a you thing, and you carry that baggage, because if you don't have a good family dynamic that you came from, that becomes your life, that becomes your experience with all of this. People who live with heavy guilt or heavy regret for past situations in their life, and a lot of people that carry anger and negativity. These are all examples of like baggage that we carry, and we don't realize it a lot of the time. Now, when you're looking at the dynamic for that, and if any of you guys, just within hearing some of these, kind of see it in yourself, again, I will say it's okay, because it's normal. It's normal to have multiple of these. If you have all of these, we might have to do some reevaluating, but at least you know where you're starting and you know where you have to go. To know where you're going to get to, you got to know where we started from. So it's a good precursor for that. And again, everybody's got these. I got some of these too. Now you got to look at signs why it's affecting your actual relationship. One of the things that I think a lot of us have is like emotional distance taking. Like you're with the person, you're in a relationship, but when emotions kick in, you tend to just kind of like disattach yourself. It's not a deal breaker. It's not something that is overly damaging to your relationship. But if it's a consistent thing, then that's where it becomes problematic. And I think that's the thing with a lot of these. Some of these are just straight off the bat no, but that's a little bit concerning. Because if you're to be in a relationship with a person, that means you've got to be able to trust that person. So is it that the person just is not a trustworthy person? Or is it you just having such high level of trust issue and paranoia that you can't seem to want to emotionally invest? And a lot of the times when people struggle with emotional investment and they take a lot of emotional distance, it's out of fear. I think a lot of the time they're afraid they're going to get hurt. They're afraid that they're going to invest emotionally and then lose that person. And then you've now set yourself in a situation where you became dependent on an emotional aspect, and boom, now it's gone. Now you're there to just navigate this by yourself. I went through this myself, I will personally say. For me, it was a little bit different because for me, it was like I felt like when I invested emotionally, and this is not just relationship-wise, this was family dynamic, this was even at my job a couple times, and even with like friends. You invest in them in that emotional sense, and a lot of the times they can take that and use it against you. And I'm sure this has happened to a lot of people. So a lot of us just kind of get to that point where we're like, emotionally, I'm just going to distance myself when I'm going through things. Maybe my mood might throw you off. Maybe the way I deal with things is not going to be the same way you would deal with it. And I don't want to cause you any type of hardship. But at the end of the day, you got to understand that that's going to affect your relationship, because your whole goal in the relationship is to develop a closeness with your partner. So if every time things get difficult, or every time there's any type of like emotional issue, you're just going to run away and you're going to distance yourself, how are you ever going to build that bond with that person? How are you ever going to know that if you can trust them in that sense? And how will you give them the opportunity to like be there for you? If as soon as things go wrong or go sideways, or you're in a place where you can't understand your emotional state, that doesn't mean that they can't. That doesn't mean that they can't help you. And at the end of the day, you should be working together. So emotional distance is a huge one that I think affects like a huge percentage of relationships. And I don't think we truly understand that until we hear it for ourselves. The second one is commitment issues. A lot of people got commitment issues. And we're not just talking like, oh, well, I'm off just like cheating, or I'm like talking to other people. I'm not even going to that extreme. Commitment is a huge thing, and it has so many different layers to it. And the basic layer ties into that emotional distance. We're in a relationship, we're dating, we're together, or we have a good friendship, or we're developing a family dynamic, whatever it is. And you have one foot in, one foot out. And it's not that you're a bad person. It's not that you don't know what you want. It's not anything like that. There's a lot of fear there for you that's keeping you from doing it. You kind of like what you're doing, but maybe you don't trust yourself in this space. Maybe you're afraid of how this is going to change you, because change is huge for people and it's hard for people to understand. So you're going to just teeter that line as much as you can. And you're going to leave it in a place that like you're not going to fully commit to something, so that if you have to leave, it's not going to be as damaging for you. Maybe damaging for the other person, but definitely not for you, because you could just be like, well, I wasn't fully in it anyways. Your time's going to be less committal. The person's position in your life or priority status in your life is going to be lesser. So you're not going to put yourself out there so much that like if it doesn't work, then you can walk away with as little damage as possible. Fear is crazy, especially when it comes to relationships, because you have to really put that away if you're going to try to make this work. How are you going to learn to swim if you're just dipping your foot in the whole time? You have to get in the water. You have to swim. You have to go against the current. You have to do all of these things to actually learn it. And if you're so afraid of getting hurt, you're never going to put yourself in that situation. Like, commitment is really something where you have to just be in or you have to be out. You can't half commit to something. You can't half commit to a gym membership. Every month, you got to pay to go there. Whether you go there or not is your business. But every month, those payments come out of your paycheck. You do the same with your insurance. You do the same with your job. You may hate your job, but every day you know you got to go in and do it. So if you can commit to those things, why are you not committing to a relationship? So if you're half in, half out, and you got commitment issues, like that is something that's gravely going to affect yourself moving forward. People who were serial daters. Before you guys got together, they were just dating one person after the other. Sometimes they're dating like 15 people at once. Now, I don't think this is a huge problem, especially prior to your relationship, but it does raise a couple things. It's you looking at like quantity over quality. Now, it's one thing to get to know people. It's one thing to like take your time and get to kind of like figure out where people are in your life. When I was single, I would be talking to different people. I wouldn't just be like, oh, like this girl's awesome and I'm just going to be like all about her. Like, no, like you go through the process. You take the time to get to know these people. You take this time to see if you can function in a relationship with these people. So this is before you're jumping into the pool. You're looking at the water like, oh, okay, well, this is okay. Well, the temperature feels nice. This is great. But if you're actively like, I'm taking out this person on Wednesday, and then I'm taking out this person on Thursday, and then I'm taking out that person on Friday, and I'm sleeping with like all of these people, then that is where it becomes more of a problem, because you're not even sure what you need in a relationship. You just like the idea of being in one. You like the attention that you get from it. You like the fun and the excitement you get from it. So those people who chase that, once they get into a relationship, there's going to be a point where this becomes hard. There's going to be a point where this becomes work. You've got to want it. And in order to fix a lot of the problems that you're going to come across, you've got to understand exactly what it is that you want, what it is that you need, and what it is that you value from this relationship. Because if you can't explain what that person is doing well and where that person can work to make this better, then it's going to stay where it is. And you just create this toxic environment where you're just used to running. And you're just used to like, oh, well, I don't like this, so I'm just going to go over here. Paranoia. Well, we all have it. I don't care who you are. We all have it. We all have those moments where it's like, oh, I didn't hear from this person all day. I wonder what they're doing. Are they home? Are they not home? Why aren't they talking to me? Like, did I do something wrong? We all have this. So it's kind of normal. Like when you really think about it, if we're all suffering from it, it's kind of normal in a relationship. Don't let anybody fool you. You could have somebody who's like, no, if you go out with your friends, like, I don't care. That's fine. Go do your thing. But you know they're at home like, wonder what they're doing. I wonder why this was like such a big thing for them. I wonder why they haven't messaged me. Like if it was me, I would like be like, hey, I took a picture with me and my friend, and I'd be like somewhat engaged, like keeping them in the loop as to what's going on with me, what we're doing, what we're up to. We've all been there. We all do it. So can't feel guilty about it. It is what it is. That's how the mind works. We obsess over the things that we don't know. So paranoia is normal, but paranoia in excess is definitely scary. And if you're constantly just going to act on your paranoia, that's where it becomes damaging to your relationship. If I'm in a relationship and like you're allowed to have your freedom, you're your own person, you're allowed to go out with your friends, you're allowed to do your thing, you were a person before me. But my thing is if every single time you go out with your people or you go out with your friends and you indulge in whatever it is, and like you never talk about it to me, that paranoia is going to sit in your head. And me in that situation, your goal at this point, like I can ask about it, like I can infer about, oh, what'd you guys do? Like, you know what I mean? Like, but if you're just going to sit there and just constantly stress about it, and every time that person's not around you or that person's not communicating with you, you go to that place, like that's a scary place to be. And that's just going to affect your relationship, because now you're creating a narrative without ever having any substance or any idea of actually what's going on. So if you're not really acting on it, it's because you want to live in that place of paranoia. And if it's not something you talk about and it's not something you discuss with your partner, they're not going to know that it's a problem. So it's just going to continue. Projection. All do this again. We all do this. You feel bad. You feel something's going on. So you start assuming that your partner is going to do this. I've seen this happen so many times where like somebody cheated on someone and then they were just terrified that that person was cheating as well. And really that is a conflict of that person who actually did it. because that guilt kicks in. And you're looking at it at, well, I consider myself an upstanding person, so if I did it, I guarantee they're going to do it. Or because I did it, they may know and they're going to do it back to me. So it's a fear you projected onto yourself, which quotes into paranoia once again. And comparison. Comparison is normal. Comparison is how you learn about things. You learned about hot and cold because of comparison. You learn the difference between standing and sitting, walking and running due to comparison. So comparison is normal. Where it becomes dangerous is when you're constantly comparing. And what you're comparing to. If you have a partner, if you're comparing your partner to everybody else, that's a positive. My bad, that's a negative. But if you're comparing everybody else to your partner, that's where it's a positive. It all depends on what your source reference is. So if I'm in a relationship and I think that my partner is an amazing human being and everybody around me, I'm just kind of like, well, this person is just really positive all the time and everyone around me is so negative. What the hell's going on here? I'm starting to look at them differently because I'm putting stock into the person that's bringing the positivity into my life. I understand what they're bringing to my life. I understand the goods about them. So I'm looking at everything else like, okay, well, if this is good, then this is not so good. But if you're comparing it in the opposite way, it's like, well, this person that I know does this for me, or this person that I know does that for me, or this person that I know brings this into my life. What is my partner doing? Now you've taken something that really should have been a positive and you've made it a negative. And now you've made your partner the enemy and everybody else the measuring stick for them. So if that's the case, then why are you with them? Like, why did you get to that point with them in the first place? There's got to be something about this person that they brought into your life that you weren't getting from other people, hence why you are here. But now you are flipping the negative. And where that comes from, again, is some unresolved issues that you've had from before. So these are just some quick examples of like how this stuff could be affecting your relationship. So if you're seeing this in your relationship, or you're the person doing this in your relationship, there's some work we got to do here. And it's okay, because as bad as it may be, or as negative as it may be adding to your life, there is ways to get around this stuff. There is ways to manage this. And some of the things that like I seen go into practice, I've learned and I've studied myself. I've seen other people do this. Speaking with friends of mine who are therapists, speaking to just everyday people. Some of the things that they do is actually really positive. Now, first and foremost, you have to focus on how to properly deal with whatever it is that you're carrying, whatever that baggage is. You got to put your full focus into how you're properly going to navigate a relationship with it. And you have to be very good at communicating that to your partner. If you're a person that when you get stressed out, you just need some time to yourself, like I just need a day to kind of process this and figure it out, make sure that you express that at the beginning. You understand that I need this space to deal with this. And you're expressing that you need the space to deal with this. And that's fine. And most of the time, your partner is going to be like, all right, you know what? Do what you got to do. Figure it out, whatever. But now you actually have to utilize that time to deal with whatever it is. And this is what some of us don't do. Some of us will say, oh, honestly, I just need some time. I just need some space to breathe and think about it. And then we'll figure it out. Like, can we talk about this tomorrow? Like, you got to give them a time frame. You can't just say, I just need time to deal with this. How about, give me a day. Let me think about it. We can discuss it tomorrow. So now that person's sitting there and they're like, oh, okay, well, they just need a day to think about this. That's okay. They're going to expect some type of resolve, some type of communication, some type of conversation about it within a day. And if you're just saying that just to bide your time, well, that's great. But you do actually have to do the work. And by doing the work, you're showing your partner that I'm actually serious about resolving issues. I'm actually serious about resolving this problem that we've come across. As opposed to just, I'm going to say it so I don't have to deal with it. There is a promise there that we are going to figure this out, and we are going to put our effort into figuring this out. Now, if you're not doing that, that person's going to look at you and be like, well, are you even serious about dealing with this? What is the point of me even bringing this up? What is the point of us talking about this or trying to resolve this? You obviously aren't interested in that. So they're going to stop coming to you with things. And then right then and there, now you've officially sabotaged any progress that you may have made. So in order to work on it, you got to focus on how you're going to actually deal with it and actually do the work to deal with it. Now, another thing that I don't think we fully always think about actively, we may think about it after the fact, is you got to understand that avoiding the issue just creates more unhealthy baggage. Like, you got that bag in the closet already, which you're avoiding to deal with, and now you're taking on new things. You're taking on new relationships, you're taking on a new job, you're taking on just new experiences. Like, you're always going to have something happening. Something's always going to be going on in your life. Something's always going to be coming to you. Something's always going to be requiring your attention, your focus, your ability to resolve something. So the world is not going to stop because you have baggage. It's going to continue. And you're still going to have to now deal with whatever is coming at you now. Dealing with the new relationship that you got into. Dealing with the fight that you just had with your brother. Dealing with the loss of a loved one. You're always going to have something coming your way. And not being able to deal with that emotional baggage that you already have, like, shoved up in your closet, is not helping you, because you're looking at that stressed out. You got to deal with this stress as well. And then on top of that, like, this is just going to wind up in the closet too. So you're just putting more stuff in the closet that you're not going to deal with. And that's going to just lead to more unhealthy stuff. So if we keep putting it off and, ignoring the elephant in the room and not really giving the good effort to kind of like figure these things out and understand where it's coming from and navigating it properly, we're just making a bigger problem for ourselves. I'll give you the example. You're walking through the house. You see, I got a kid. So like, a juice box straw wrapper on the floor. Because as a parent, any parents, you're going to see that in your house. So that piece of that wrapper is just on the floor. And you're going to walk past it. Maybe you don't want to bend down to pick it up. You're just going to leave it, be like, oh, well, and you're going to assume, oh, well, somebody's going to pick it up. And you're going to move forward with your life. But you don't see the progressive actions of that. First and foremost, if no one picks it up, that's going to stay there. And two, if somebody walks by and sees that the place is dirty, they're not going to care to clean it up. They might just throw their juice box straw wrapper on the ground too, because there's already one there and nobody cares. And then the person that did the initial one, they're going to see you don't care to clean it up, so it's okay behavior. And you just keep going. And now that small problem becomes a big problem. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but again, if you're a parent, you understand this. You'll see this. Unless you clean up that entire room, your kids are going to get comfortable just leaving their shit everywhere. It just is what it is. They're going to get comfortable with that. But when they come in and they see that it's clean, now you have claim to say, listen, I cleaned up this place. You guys aren't messing this up again. If you mess it up, you're going to clean it up like this. You're going to see how fast they're going to actually keep that space clean. They might just mess up a different room, but that one's going to be safe. Now, another way for us to get past this stuff is we got to share these experiences. We have to share the past. And share how that could like affect your current behavior. Because that's the only way you're going to build understanding. If I come into a relationship with a person and they tell me that they were cheated on before, I already know that that's going to be a problem for you. So let's discuss how that is affecting how you are now. How is that going to change how you are moving forward? And how do I build that understanding so that I know what you need from me? If you're a person that's been cheated on, one of the first things that gets broken is your trust factor. Like, it is. Your trust is gone. You can't trust that person anymore. Some people may lose respect for you, or you may lose respect for people. You may have self-esteem issues in yourself, feeling that you're not good enough, you're not adequate enough. This person, you gave them everything and they didn't really give a shit. They don't care. That other person may have not even been in your league. So you're standing there wondering like, well, if I'm so good to you, what did this person give to you that I couldn't? And that's the one thing that's going to linger into your head is, what did I do wrong? What that winds up leading to is you develop a very bad sense of self, and you lose a lot of value in your own self. So if you're coming in a relationship with somebody, you're going to be hypersensitive to anything that you had seen leading up to that person cheating or after. So small things are going to bother you. It is what it is. Small things will bother you. And you may look at it as, well, it's not that big of a deal, like in the grand scheme of things, but it is going to bother you. One thing that I know a lot of people have dealt with is like someone's phone. Like, let's be honest. That's a huge, 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 huge thing. If you are a person who naturally likes keeping your phone on you, again, not a bad behavior. Your partner may do that as well. But because they were cheated on, and when that happened, it's that person taking that phone to like disappear for a couple hours, or the phone rang and they got up and like ran or something like that, or you went through their phone, which I don't really think anyone should do, but you went through their phone and you saw stuff. Like, that's going to be something that's going to be a trigger for you. That's going to be something that you're going to look at in a negative way. So one thing that we also have to understand is, like, if you were a person that happened to, your partner may actually be doing nothing wrong at all. Like, if there were a person who goes out a lot, they go out, hang out with their friends, some other people in their friend circle might be women, and they've known these women for years, never had a relationship with them, never had anything to do with them. They're just friends. It will bother you, because at the end of the day, it was another female that like had this experience with your partner, or another male that had an experience with your partner. So that's going to be a little bit hypersensitive for you, whether or not it is a problem or not. It's not going to sit well with you. So having that communication with each other and saying, hey, listen, man, like, I was cheated on. This is what happened. This is how we got to that point. This is how I feel. And this is how I'm moving now because of it. You have an understanding of kind of what your partner is going to need, what they're going to need from you, whether it's a little bit extra reassurance, whether it's like, hey, I'm going here, I'll be back by this time. Like, as small as it is, it makes them feel good. Whether it's a, hey, good morning, like, hey, I'm busy right now because of this, can we talk later? Like, those small things are going to actually make a big difference, because that's going to build mental security and emotional security with that person. And it's going to show them, like, yeah, I'm different from that person. What that person was doing, they didn't care about. I want to know what you need from me and what will put you in a positive space with me, so that you don't have to stress about this, because my intention is not to do that. I want to make you secure as possible. And it's the vice versa. Like, women, you got to do this with your men too. Men deal with a lot of insecurities on an everyday basis. So we got to talk about this stuff and like, no, hey, listen, I have a problem with this because of X, Y, and Z. And then you find out a way to work around it. But if you don't know, how are you going to do it? You also have to be open about your triggers. Like, I was just kind of like, I was going to segue into this. You got to be open about your triggers. There are things that are going to trigger you. It is what it is. I'll be honest, sometimes I'm just around a person and something about that person can trigger me. Something they said, something they did, a way that they moved, something. But it's tied to a past trauma, because I look at it this way. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the uniform effect. So the uniform effect, you will see it in an everyday basis, but a lot of people don't really take it in or understand what it is. Have you ever been in an area and you see a cop and you immediately start acting prim and proper out of nowhere? Maybe you're driving and you see a cop car drive by and you immediately check your speed limit to see if you're speeding or not. Now, the entire time you weren't speeding, but because you saw the cop, now you're like, oh, like, you're looking around, making sure you're following all the like driving laws and everything like that. But at the end of the day, you've done nothing wrong. Or you walk into a store and a cop is there and you're like, oh, something must be going on. That's a uniform effect. It has nothing to do with the situation. It has nothing to do with what you were doing. It's just you were triggered by that uniform. This is actually a thing that like law enforcement deal with on a regular basis. It's kind of crazy. But it's the same thing with like any part of life. And let's put it in the context of employment. If you worked in an environment where your supervisor was not receptive to anything that you guys had to say, and they just kind of ran you guys like animals, they didn't care what you needed. If you go to another job and you see somewhat of similar behavior to that, you will immediately be triggered by that person. The one time that you go to like say something to them and that door is closed, even though it could have been open all week, the one time you went there and it was closed, you will be triggered by that. And you will go to that place mentally because you haven't really processed why that happened and have an understanding as to why it affected you the way it affected you. And what we don't do sometimes is we don't really like do that comparison sometimes. A lot of us, we are going into relationships with people and we don't quite understand that this person and that person are different people. Like my experience here with this person and my experience there with that person are completely different. But I'm still dealing with like the hurt of this. Now, one thing that has to be there is intention. Intention has to be there. If somebody is just a person that's just used to having their phone on them, like I was very phone heavy. Like I have games on my phone. I'm constantly on my email. I like to flip through like social media. It's out of boredom. It's not out of me being secretive or it's not out of me hiding anything. It's out of boredom. Like we've become very attached to our devices now. So if your past person was very much like that or exhibited that type of behavior, you still have to look and compare like, okay, well, what else are they doing that's similar or what are they doing that's different? And that is the big thing. If they're doing everything that's similar to that past person, then okay, maybe you got to put a little bit of stock into there. But if that's the only connection that they have, you got to also take that into consideration as well. Now, you got to discuss what you want to do differently in your new relationship. And that dates back to understanding how the behavior affects you and what triggers you. You have to go to your partner and say, hey, listen, my past relationship was A. This is what I'm comfortable with now because this is what I want. If you were a person who was in a bad relationship before, you come to your partner, you say, hey, listen, I was in a relationship where I didn't feel valued. I was in a relationship where I felt like the person didn't really care what I had to say, didn't really care what I had to do. They just, this is how I felt in a negative sense. And in my new relationship, this is what I want. I want to feel valued. I want to be respected. This is how I will feel valued or respected. You have to do that because you have to give them a roadmap as to what they can do to put you in that safe space. 2, if they're not a person who can provide you that, you're letting them know like, this is what I want. This is my standard. This is what I think will work for me to have a positive, progressive relationship. And you let them decide if they can do that or not. If they can't, then they can't. Then you dodge the bullet and you move on with your life. But if they're willing to do it, at least they know like, hey, this is what they want. And if there's things that I have to improve on myself to facilitate that because they mean something to me, then I will do so. And if they don't want to take it, then they won't take it. It is what it is. But if you're not expressing that with them, how do you expect them to like know what they're supposed to do or know what you need in that relationship? Now, the amazing thing that like I don't get how, I can say for myself, I didn't used to do this before. And looking back now, I'm like, why didn't I? Was you have to create healthy boundaries when they're needed. Not all the time, just when they're needed. And you'll start to realize that the more that you do that, the more that you actually trust yourself. You trust your understanding of yourself. If you're in a situation where you're feeling like, hey man, like I don't know about this. I don't know if this is a good idea. And you put that boundary in place, you don't feel bad about it. Because it's something that you know you need for your own psyche at this point. Whether that person agrees to it, whether that person wants to respect it or not, that's up to them. But you're saying, hey, like, I don't know if this is a good idea. Hey, I don't feel like what you did the other day was a good thing. I would appreciate if we don't do that again. I don't know if like seeing this person every day is like a thing for me. Like I do appreciate like some time to myself, and I would like love if you can facilitate that for me. Or maybe it's an external person. Maybe it's like, I don't know how I feel about the relationship you have with this person. Not that I'm trying to come in between you and a personal relationship with somebody else. But I feel like some of the conduct that's happening there is a little weird to me, and I don't feel comfortable with that. So if you choose to persist in that, that's fine. That's your business. But I'm going to make a boundary here saying that if that happens, this will be my reaction. Creating that boundary is good because sometimes you need a permanent boundary, or sorry, a long-term boundary or a short-term boundary. And it doesn't have to be that extreme. Short-term boundary could simply be, hey, give me like some time to think about this. Let's discuss this tomorrow. Let's go here and like go on this date and like not talk about that or not think about it. Hey, let's put our phones away during dinner. Like just small little things like that. They don't even have to be that big of a deal. But it could just be like, hey, like I really just want to spend that time with you just today because I don't feel like I've had that all week. So like I'm going to put my phone away because I want to facilitate that with you. Hopefully you do the same. Just small little things like that. It doesn't have to be anything major. The beautiful thing about this too is you can actually bond over the baggage. If you both went through the same thing, or if you both have an understanding of how it could affect you. Like let's say, again, we're going to get back into infidelity. Let's say like your ex cheated on you. You may not be as a person like where like you went through that, your partner went through that, but your mother could have gone through it. Your sister could have gone through it. A friend of yours could have gone through it. And now you guys have something to talk about. Now you have something to like work with, something to discuss. And you can take this negative experience, though it had nothing to do with you, and you guys can create a closer bond. Now, if you were that person and like, well, you know, like my ex cheated on me, so like, you know, I appreciate that you're not that type of person, or I appreciate that you wouldn't do that to me, or I appreciate that I feel safe with you. That's something you guys can bond over. It had nothing to do with you. Nothing at all to do with you. You weren't even there when it happened. But because you guys discussed it, and because you guys are creating the proper boundaries for it, and you have that understanding of it, you now become closer. And this happens in all facets of life. Think about a lot of the people in your life. Some of the people that you met in your life, you met when you were in a bad place. Because they were in a bad place too. And you guys bonded over that negative experience, and then found other things that you could work towards. So now when you talk to each other, it's like, yo, remember back then when this happened? Like that's what that does. Trauma can bring people together. Bad experiences can bring people together. It's just a matter of how you navigate it. So you can actually use all this baggage, understand it with your partner, go through it with your partner, and carry it with your partner until you guys resolve it. And now you're even closer. Now, the last thing I'm going to touch on, we're going to go into a little bit more outside of this, but I don't want to be here too long, is your baggage can be used to make you a better partner if you understand it. If you understand it. Case in point example. Let's say you were the partner that cheated. You know how it affected your past relationship. And now you come into a situation where like, you know that like, hey, like this behavior was not cool with my past partner. My new partner doesn't appreciate that either. So I now understand kind of like why I did that, and I'm not going to put myself in those places again. If you were in a past relationship where you were an avoidant and you didn't like to deal with conflict and you didn't like to talk about your problems, and you now come into a new relationship, well, you know, not communicating with my partner led us to break up. So my fear of conflict and my avoidant behavior, I can't do that in this new relationship because it's going to damage my new relationship. That's you taking onus on yourself and accountability for your actions to the point where you studied it to understand the whole scope of it and how it can actually negatively affect our relationship. And you're making that change and that difference. So being that person who had to go and carry that baggage, once you process it and understand it, you're now flipping it to make it a positive. That's what experience is. It's taking something that happened to you, something that you went through, understanding it, and now applying it to get a positive result. When people don't do that, you're going to start to see them falling into the same relationship over and over and over and over and over again because they're not learning from it. They're not taking what they have or what they did wrong. So we have to now take all of this together. And the one thing that seems to be coming together in this process is communication and comprehension. We got to communicate. We got to talk about it. We got to discuss it. It's hard, yes, but it's hard because it's beneficial. So if we're going to sit here and just act like, oh, well, it's just going to go away and we're going to leave it in the closet, we're never going to know it's there. And if you're the partner coming in, if I don't know what's in that closet, I want to understand what the hell is going on. I want to understand, like, why this throws you off, or why you're mad about this, or why you have this fear, or why you have this insecurity, because it wasn't expressed to me. So I won't know how to help you. Now, it's crazy because these dynamics are important, but there's ways around every single one of them. Now, if you're two people that have luggage, the load is light. The load is fun. It's easy, but it's hard. It's easy because you're not carrying all this residual damage, but you still have to make sure that the things that you are carrying with you, because you're going to carry something, are still addressed and they're still dealt with. Just because you're not carrying as much luggage doesn't mean you still don't have to deal with what you have. You still got to put that thing in the overhead. So at the end of the day, you're both packing light, but make sure that you're packing the right things. Making sure that, well, if my baggage, the little bit of baggage I'm bringing is this, you know about it, and we know how to navigate that space. So there's always still going to be work, regardless, whether it's light or not. Sometimes, too, you leave some things behind. Right? Have you ever gone on vacation and like you packed your bag, they packed their bag. Now you both just have a carry-on going on vacation, but nobody brought soap, or nobody brought a towel, or nobody brought shampoo. Not to say that you need this on vacation, but you know what I'm saying. Like, you left something behind that you could actually use. So you got to make sure that like you both are bringing the right things. Just because it's lighter doesn't mean that like it's necessarily a good thing, because now you have to make sure that you're bringing everything that you actually need collectively. And that's why a lot of people overpack. So it's like, I'm going to bring 2 soaps instead of 1 just in case. So having the lighter luggage is great, but you have to still make sure that you're bringing the right things. 2 people with heavy baggage. This can work too, surprisingly enough. Because if you both have that much baggage, there's a damn good chance you have a lot of the same problems. So there's a good chance that if you go through the process properly and you discuss it with each other and you gain understanding with each other, you share your experiences, your fears, your likes, your dislikes, everything, you can communicate effectively about that and really narrow down what you guys have in common. It's almost easier for you to live directly instead of living vicariously. If you're a person who's been cheated on and you wind up with somebody who was also cheated on, you both understand how you felt from that happening. Vice versa, if you were somebody who was cheated on and you got with somebody who cheated on somebody, you can discuss that. And you can kind of get an understanding of like why this person did it and how this person felt receiving it. And if you can discuss it and you can come to that understanding, you almost have more source material in a way. Because the more that I have that we can relate over, if we can actually put in the work and relate to it, the closer bond we're going to have, because we had more experiences together, technically. We had more things that we had to communicate about and tie together. So you now make more knots in the chain than anything else, which makes it stronger. You have more links. The more links you have in the chain, the better. The longer the chain's going to be. It's more work, but if you can do it, and you both put in the effort and you both put in the work, you can actually create a bond that is stronger than anything else, because you fully have an understanding of your partner because you've gone through more experiences with them than anything else. Even though it wasn't directly with you, you're still taking in more input. You're getting more source material to work with. It's harder because there's just more. Now, in my opinion, the most beneficial scenario is one partner with a lot of baggage and one partner with luggage together. Opposites attract for a reason. For a reason. And this is exactly what this would be, an opposites attract type of situation. You have a lot of stuff to deal with. And the reason you're not dealing with it is because you're throwing it in the closet. So you run the risk of somebody with a lot of baggage just throwing their stuff in the closet too. Now you have so much stuff in this closet that like you can't even touch it. You don't even know where to get with it. They're overcumbered and you're overcumbered. So it's harder for you to do that. But if you got one person with an empty cup and one person with a full cup and you guys work together, that's an amazing thing. Because now you get to share experiences with your partner that they may not have gone through at all. So they don't really have to stress about it. They're just learning directly from you. And they're able to help you. Now think about, have you ever gone on a trip with somebody? If your luggage is full and they're like, hey, listen, I can take like 4 shirts. They're helping you carry that load there. They're helping you get to the destination too. Like there's a cohesion there. There's a teamwork there. So if you're the person with less luggage, you're still gaining experience and still gaining knowledge and still kind of like going through a decompression yourself through your partner. And if you're the person with a lot of luggage, you have somebody that can help you. You have somebody that can lean on with you. You have somebody that can show you how to lighten the load because they've done it themselves. A lot of the times, though, you'll see people who have luggage looking at people who have baggage and saying, yo, I don't want to deal with this. This is crazy. Like, I don't want to touch this. I was there. I took the time to figure this out. And, like, if I can do it, you should be able to do it, too. And this is the first thing that a lot of us go to is, like, oh, well, at the end of the day, like, you need to get your shit together. You need to figure out your life. Like, I did it. You got to figure it out, too. But we don't understand that. Like, we don't know what they're dealing with. We don't know how they're looking at themselves. We don't know how much this is affecting them. And being that person, if you're coming in with luggage, you've gone through it. You've figured it out. You have a mindset that's kind of developed in order to cleaning things up. And is all of that baggage going to be repulsive to a degree? Absolutely. But that's a benefit. Because if I'm coming in, and let's give the advantage of the straw wrapper. If I come in and see the straw wrapper on the ground, and I'm not a person who likes seeing the straw wrapper, I'm going to pick it up. I'll pick it up and I'll throw it out. And then when that's seen, the person who sees it, who's okay with it being there, will be like, oh, well, maybe next time I should pick it up and throw it out too. You become a guide in a way. But you guys still, again, it boils down to communication, and you got to be able to talk about these things. And you got to be ready to be uncomfortable. And you have to want to help that person. You have to want to get them over the line. And they have to want to get there. You could want it all day. You could want to put 110% effort and say, hey, listen, like, we're together, we're a couple, we're doing this. Your baggage is my baggage. We're going to figure it out. We're going to lighten this load and we're going to go to Aruba. But if you're not doing anything as the person with the baggage, then anything that other person's going to do is not going to make a difference. Because that's a mind shift. Like, you got to change the way you're thinking in that degree. You got to understand that, like, this here, putting all this stuff in the closet is not healthy. Some people are afraid to leave their situation and leave the environment that they're in because they're so comfortable with it. They're in a point where, like, not having all that stress, not having all that baggage is going to terrify them. Think of a hoarder. Hoarders keep all that stuff because they have some attachment to that. Once you start pulling that stuff outside of the house, they start losing their mind. They're like, oh my God, like, everything's changing. That's why change is so hard for people. Because it challenges the way you think. You got in the situation that you're in, and you're in the place that you're in because of how you were thinking, how you were moving, the values that you had at the time. And you're going to remain in that space unless you make that mental shift that says, I don't want to be here anymore. And really make that mental shift. Because it's very easy for us to say, oh, well, this is what I want for myself, and, like, I want to do better. But as soon as we got any work to do, it ain't happening. If you really look at a lot of the people who get up and, like, change their lives, like, I go to the gym. I'm a regular gym person. There are a lot of people that come into the gym like, hey, man, like, I'm ready to work out. I'm ready to do this. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel fit. And in 2 months, they are gone. You never see them again. They never come back. Or you got to wait till January next year and then you see them again. Because they're not serious about the change. When you're serious about the change and you're serious about getting to that point, everything in your life that does not suit who you want to be is no longer relevant to you. It's no longer relevant. I'm a person who, like, I used to party all the time. I'll be honest. I used to party all the time when I was, like, young. I'm talking like between like 16 and like 20. I was like a huge party person. I used to do party promotions. My family owned a restaurant, so like we were hosting parties all the time. I was like a huge party person. And when I turned 19, I was like, I gotta change the way I'm moving here. This is not something that's suiting who I want to be as a person. So making that mental shift for me was huge. Do I still go out from time to time? Yeah. Am I in the club every week? Absolutely not. You see me maybe once every couple months if it's somebody's birthday. I'd rather go to a house party and just chill with my people, because your life takes on a different task that way. It takes on a different idea that way. Now, unfortunately, like I've been very fortunate that a lot of my friends are very successful people. They're very successfully driven people. Some of them aren't there yet, but the mentality is there. But I have a lot of friends who weren't like that. I had a lot of friends who were like, I'm content, just like, I grew up in the hood. So a lot of them were like selling drugs. A lot of them were just like, they did nothing with themselves. I was around a lot of people who didn't have the same ambition as me, and me having that, your drive is different. You're okay to settle with that mentality. And I said to myself, this is not what I want. This is not who I want to be. So I started gravitating towards other people naturally. Not because it's like I made the conscious decision to do so. It's just my mentality shifted of like, I need to be around people who know how to be successful. And I know how to be around people who have goals and have ambitions. And being around those people and seeing that quality in them just naturally gravitated towards me. But I had to accept at the same time that the people that did not suit that life for me may not be there at the end of this. And that was okay. And as soon as you make that shift, it's okay. It's fine. You will see how quickly things just change for you. You ever leave one job to another job? One job where you were making like minimum wage, and now you move to a job where it's like you're making financially like way more than you were making before. Let's say you were working at McDonald's and now you're working in the head office of McDonald's. You will immediately just feel different. The things that appeal to you will just be completely different at that point. You'll be walking into that McDonald's like, oh man, I'm glad I'm not here anymore. And it's not a knock to it. It's just your mentality is now in a whole different place. You're vibrating at a whole different level than you've ever been before. But that now comes with the idea of some of the values that I held it before will be different now. And you have to accept that. This is why change is hard for people, because at the end of the day, it challenges who you are as a person. It challenges the way you think. It challenges the things that you value. And a lot of people hold on to that baggage because it's hard for them to get rid of it, because now they have to admit, well, maybe this was a bad decision that I made. Maybe the way I was looking at life here was negative. Maybe when I was doing this, I was not in the best place myself. And this behavior was a result of me just not being able to handle the stress or handle whatever I was going through. Or maybe this is just what I wanted at that point in my life. There are some people who are like that. There are some people who grew up in that life of fast money and like fast women and like drug use and stuff like that. And during that time of their life, that appealed to them. It is what it is. It's life. There was a point in time where I was drag racing. Like, it is what it is. It appealed to me at that time. Will I do that now? Absolutely not. That's insane to me. But during that part of my life, that was what I was into. During that part of my life, I was into partying. During that part of my life, I was into that life. And that's okay. That's who I was. We can't sit back and just worry that like, oh, well, you know, like things are different. You're always going to change. You're always going to evolve, but you have to be ready for that. You truly have to put yourself in a space where you are mentally prepared for that. Therein lies the difference between the luggage and the baggage people. The luggage people understand that some of this stuff I can't bring with me. Some of this stuff I'm going to leave behind. Some of this stuff, it's not going to be conducive to my journey that I'm going on now. I went to Siberia and I had a parka and I had a hat and I had boots. None of that's going to be useful in Aruba. So I have to leave that here. That's not going in my luggage to go to Aruba. Whereas like the people with baggage, they're bringing it with them because they're afraid of not having it. They're almost worried that like this is going to change me too much, that I'm no longer going to be who I am. And therein lies the difference again if you look into people who are true to themselves and people that cling to an identity. You got to lighten your load, people. We got to take the time. We got to decompress that baggage. And I'm telling you, it's hard and it's going to suck and it's going to make you question yourself. It's going to make you question other people. It's going to make you question decisions that you made in your life. But there's a reason for that. Because through that decompression process, you're going to figure out the value of these things and the value of these people. And if you want to get where you want to go, not everything can come with you. Nothing gold can stay. It's the truth. And something that may have suited you in a past life may have been something that just appealed to you in that space. But now that you're in a different one, or you're trying to go to a different one, you can't bring it with you. So take the time, decompress it, deal with the baggage. If you got somebody that will help you get there, lean on that person. Communicate. Be open with yourself. Be open with your partner, your friend, your parent, whoever it is, the people that are around you that this is going to affect, because it's going to change who you are. And don't be afraid to lose people, because some people just like the baggage version of you. Some people have their baggage, and that's the only way they're connecting to you is because you have something similar. Some of us hold on to the baggage so that we can keep a friendship with somebody. One thing that I've noticed growing up in my life is that there's a lot of people that I formed bonds over, and it was just based on the fact that we just were both going through something negative, or they were going through something negative and they were able to attach themselves to me because they were going through something similar. But as soon as they got better, or as soon as they healed, they didn't talk to me anymore. As soon as their interests changed and they didn't need me to lean on them, or maybe I was the person giving them the quality advice and they wanted to kind of continue their behavior, they didn't want to change, I was no longer needed. And that's okay. Some people are here for a year. Some people are here for a decade. Some people are here for a season. They all come in when they're needed and they all go when they're needed. And for you to continue to progress in your life and have your values and what you want in your life, some of them got to go. Is what it is. You can't bring it with you. So take the time to decompress it. If this really resonated with anybody and any of you kind of like looked at yourself and said like, hey, like, yeah, I'm kind of like that, or looked at like a relationship that you have and you're like, yeah, they're kind of like that. Like, this is why. You know, let's not be heavy critical here. This is really just for the educational purpose, but these are the things that we have to understand in order to live in that space where we can turn that baggage into luggage and we can go on that journey. You have to make room for the things that you want in life, and you're never going to be able to do that if you're holding on to everything else and you're not deciding what you need to go on and what you don't need to go on. Thank you guys for sitting here and listening on this with me. Some of y'all were here from the beginning, so big shout out to you guys. I hope this helped in any way, shape, or form. If it did, do subscribe, please. Like, it's actually awesome for me to reconnect with people and kind of have these communication with people. Throw it in the comments. Add me on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. It's all the same handle, @TheStoneDisclosure. And yeah, just try to apply some of this to your life. And if it helps, let me know. I want to know that this works for you too, because it worked with me and it worked with other people that I've kind of expressed this to. So I want to know if it works for you guys. Love you all. Protect your heart.